And we are back for the second episode of Dreamweavers. We are talking sleep today. Sleep is the bane of every parent's life who actually gets enough sleep as a parent. But we are talking sleep problems and different ways that we can help our children to get better sleep. Because underneath anxiety and school refusal and everything that comes up in life is a lack of sleep, and this emotional well-being is based so much in sleep, it is ridiculous. I know that Cherry has had this with her daughter, and I've had this with my boys, and I still sometimes have this, and I think my teenagers are actually nocturnal. But but if we can at least empower them to get as much sleep as they can possibly get. So that's the aim of this episode. And if you are here, thank you for joining us. And we are so happy that you've come back and that you want to hear us just ramble on and probably rant a bit somewhere in there. It's great to have a space where we can just all feel welcome and understand that we are not alone in these areas that parents are struggling with day in, day out. So let's do this, Cherry. Let's go for it. Where are we going to start? Sleep problems. You tell your story first. Yours is more fun than mine.
Everyone is so different. Like, I was incredibly lucky that when my daughter was born, she slept straight through the night from day one. She was just, I remember sitting over her, poking her, going, I swear you're supposed to do stuff. Like, are they not supposed to be waking you up? Like, what's going on? I was incredibly lucky. Like, as a newborn, as the first few months, she just always slept. And I was so lucky, because you hear these horror stories of people who have to go to the sleep clinic. They have to do all of that. Babies that don't sleep, they're up every 5 minutes. Like, I was incredibly lucky. But I think I maybe celebrated that a little bit too much, because as soon as my daughter, she's called Lily, as soon as she hit 2.5, and life became exciting because there was stuff and things. And my favorite bit of it, I'd say advice, it's not advice. My favorite thing my mum ever said was, as soon as she started not sleeping, she went, it's karma, Cherry, because I never slept as a child. I was up all the time, and but I wasn't screaming, I wasn't upset. My mum says she has these vivid memories of me somehow getting out of my bed at age 3, walking downstairs at 11 o'clock at night, head through the banister, I'm bored. And that would be it. I would be up colouring because I just wouldn't sleep. And obviously some children are programmed that they, as you say, they're nocturnal. Their brains are just on. And if you're someone who is desperately trying to get that regimented sleep pattern, and your child just isn't programmed that way, you're going to have stress. And like, obviously I'm not a baby expert, I'm not a child expert, but I've lived my experience. And I have friends whose children will only sleep in a blacked out room with total silence. And again, that works for them. I'm not saying it's bad, but it really limits what they can do, because their children, if they're having a day out, their children won't nap. They and obviously each to their own. If that works for you, amazing. That definitely didn't work for me. I was quite free spirited with Lily's napping. So if she fell asleep in the middle of the carpet on her playmat while she was doing something, I just put a blanket over her and I left her. I could hoover around her and she would stay asleep. I was
nice.
Honestly, her favorite place to nap, and this probably makes me sound like a really bad parent, but it was safe. Her favorite thing to do as a 2.5-year-old was to take the books off the lowest shelf of my bookcase, put a pillow in there, lay in it, and then put a blanket on herself. And she used to sleep on the bottom shelf of my bookshelf. And I don't know why. I think it's because she liked it with like a little pod. But she, I always made sure the top shelves there was very light things, nothing that could fall off. But she's a very interesting child. I wonder where she gets that from.
No clue.
But I think sleep is like food. You know how people do baby-led weaning? I think sleep has to be quite child-led, because if you are fighting to tell your child to sleep, that's not turning their brain off. That's aggravating and making it worse. And if you're shouting at them, then they're not relaxed, they're not calm. Your child needs to be calm and unstimulated, rather than all this stimulation of going, you need to be asleep. And it's really difficult, because when you're tired and when you're stressed and all you want is an evening,
Yep.
you're going to want to, you know, do that. But making your children upset by shouting at them, or you getting stressed and then getting stressed at them, they're going to then struggle to fall asleep because they think, oh, mummy and daddy's angry at me. Or it's a cycle. It's a cycle. And again, you have to also look after your own emotional and physical health, because you need to sleep too. If you're tired, if you're tired, then it's the same. And it's really difficult. As you say, it's each child to their own. But in these days, you've also got to be careful, because I'm a parent who very much, you know, when my daughter was younger, if she was just whizzing around and wanted her to stop, what's the easiest thing to do? You stick a screen in front of their face, you know, watch 5 minutes of this to chill, which is great. But, you know, I'm not going to go into the science of it, but everyone knows about blue light, and the light from screens makes your brain think it's daytime. So if you have
stimulation is unreal.
So if you are saying to your child, right, watch the phone or watch the tablet to fall asleep, it's the other way around. If it's an audiobook, if it's music, that's different. But I don't think people quite understand just how much blue light affects children's brains, because it's making them believe it's daytime. So their brain is like, I'm not switching off, there's no reason to. And there's so many things that you can do. But again, I'm not, if it works for you, if your child falls asleep to the tablet, you do you know. But in the end, as long as they are sleeping, you know, this isn't me policing it, because, you know, I lose count the amount of times my daughter's fallen asleep. She's 12 and a half now, and she will fall asleep with, I tell her she has to have her phone off at least half an hour before she falls asleep, because if not, it's there and she falls asleep with it smacking her in the face. But
which is really not safe.
No. And she understands that, so it's turned off, and then, but she has the TV on to fall asleep. And because she's like me, when I was a child, I used to have audiobooks, you know, my little cassette tape player in my bedroom, but I used to have something to think of, because my brain is so loud, I had to drown it out. And I think that's the same as my daughter. She just likes to have, she's not really watching it, it's just that ambient sound. And then switch it off and she's done. You know, growing up, I used to put sort of music on for her. But being quite nocturnal myself, when she used to wake up in the middle of the night or wake up early, then I was like, right, I'm tired, but I'm up. I'm used to it. But if you're a parent who loves your 10 hours of sleep a night, and you get a child who's like, I'm going to give you 3. How do you deal with it? So it's very parallel. Like, when it comes to sleep, you have to focus on your own well-being as well as theirs, because if you're stressed, they're stressed. And if you're tired and trying to deal with this, it's tough. So you need to find little things, and if you can get it in early, great. But you need to find little things that will work for them for relaxation. Like, what was your experience with sleep, like with your boys?
I had like 2 completely polar opposite children. It was like, how can you do this to me? My first one was like you. I had the really good experience of slept through the night, kind of ended up setting alarms to make sure they had their drinks, because I was that worried about them. You know, and now, years on, I'm like, I can't believe I set alarms to wake a child up, seriously. But I guess you know, I set alarm clocks for every 4 hours to make sure they were fed and checked. And he just wouldn't. He just wouldn't wake up. He was the most relaxed baby ever. And then I had my second child, and if we slept for more than 15 minutes co-sharing, I could not get him to sleep for more than that. I actually have specialized in sleep in the baby years, because I needed to. That was what kind of started my journey into all my education. Was I went to get help, and there was just nothing. And I was exhausted. I wasn't getting more than 15 minutes solid sleep a night. It was all night long. And then the advice I was given was, let them scream it out, sleep train. Oh my God, that did not work. and I tried it, because that was the help I was given. You know, that's all I knew in those days. And it's not something I would ever dream of putting a parent through, because the stress of listening to your child, and the stress on the children, was horrendous.
Yeah.
But we found ways, I think he was probably about 3 before I get a full night's sleep.
Wow.
But yeah, but we found that he had sleep problems, and he has medically diagnosed sleep problems. So there was a lot behind that. It wasn't as simple as it sounded, but
Yeah.
it was really stressful, and I wasn't able to function as a parent. I was barely managing day to day, as I had all and I'm not particularly good sleeper myself. Like you, I'm kind of nocturnal, but it's, you think you're nocturnal till you have a child that's nocturnal, and then you realize you're not.
Yeah, you miss those broken hours of sleep that you managed to have.
No, it was really quite interesting. We tried so many methods over the years to help him sleep, and so many of them worked really well. But I think it's also, there's so much pressure to get your child to sleep a certain amount of hours on parents, especially with when they're in schools and they have to get up at 8 o'clock. God, you find me a teenager who doesn't go to bed before 3 o'clock in the morning and gets up at 7 in a good mood.
Yeah.
It's all through their development. You're always trying to hit a sleep goal, and as a parent, we're kind of given these. Your child should be sleeping 8 to 10 hours a night. No, as long as they are sleeping comfortably the hours that work for them, then
Quality,
that
not
to me is
quantity.
exactly. And it's also when you're in that position where you have, we're talking about babies and really young children. When you have a baby or a young child that cannot sleep, you're trying everything. You've got the white noise on, you've blacked out the room, you're rocking in a blinking corner with a bottle, hoping for the best. You're trying everything you can. And there's that pressure that I'm doing this wrong. My child won't sleep. So how am I a bad parent?
Yeah.
And that is the thought cycle that goes around your head. You're not a bad parent. You have a child who is unable to sleep because that's not their timetable.
Yeah.
It's not, they aren't born with a sleep timetable.
No.
So we can create sleep timetables, but if we're fighting against their natural rhythms, then instantly we're down and out. And in this country, summer, I think mine were always up at like the crack of dawn because it's daylight, time to get up, woo!
And not even thinking about being tired until it was pitch black. So you're looking, what, 10 o'clock in the middle of summer?
Exactly. And you're still trying to put your kids to sleep at 5 o'clock and get them up at 8 o'clock. It's thinking about the rhythms and the calming and there are so many methods to help babies sleep that we could go through. I could have a whole different podcast just on those methods. Everything from swaddling to white noise, pink noise. Personally, I found pink noise is better than white noise. It's kind of a combination of the deep and the different tones. But you can work with the smell of a room, you can work with the different types of bed linen and the textures and the sensory input that your child has. You can also work with just your temperament. If you're going into that room stressed, your child can feel that. If you need to take 5 minutes out, then take it. Your child will be okay for 5 minutes. It's one of those, it's going into what's triggering them. It will be the important part of finding the baby, but it's also giving yourself grace and space to understand that they're not going to sleep 10 hours a night. If they're a child that is struggling to sleep, you're not going to go from waking up every 5 minutes to being sleeping 10 hours. It's going to be a really long journey to discover how to help them relax their brain to sleep. It's not an instant quick fix. We can try and sell all these quick fixes all you want, but the realism is there's no quick fix. If your child is struggling to sleep, there are ways to help, but there is no quick fix. That is their natural rhythm. And make room for that, understand that, and stop beating yourself up for it is what I wish someone had told me when I was struggling and getting 15 minutes a night sleep. I wish someone had told me that was okay and that was normal for some children. And I wasn't alone out there. So that's my I've completely gone off, but that's my thing. If you're struggling, then you're not alone. There are so many ways you can help yourself and your child, but we kind of as parents often feel pressure to have that perfect answer instantly done, and there's no such thing.
Yeah.
Every time you're trying to get that child to sleep in the night and struggling, then you are perfectly parented. And that's all there is in that.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
No,
But
it
yeah,
makes sense.
I had such a, I think going backwards, it was such a horrible experience to have no support.
Yeah.
It's one of the first things I ever trained in was doing that to support others, because you feel so lost in this world when you're struggling and you've got no sleep. And it's such
you
a
forget
huge
how
thing.
much. Yeah. It's madness, but you do forget how much sleep matters, just for your daily functions. I remember sort of going back to when Lily was about 3. I think it was about 11:30 at night, and she was still absolutely buzzing. And I think it had been a really long day. I was really tired, and I remember I was, it was dark in her room, and I was just like, I was singing to her and I was rocking her, and I was like, come on darling, go to sleep, go to sleep. And she was absolutely pinging, she was so awake, and I was like, why am I doing this? I'm knackered myself. So what I did is I picked her up, got her teddy, we went downstairs, I stuck on a TV show that I wanted to watch. It wasn't a children's thing. I think it was Sherlock. I think it was that. I stuck that on, and automatically she sat next to me on the sofa. She had her teddy, I think she had some milk, and she laid into me. I relaxed.
Yeah.
She relaxed. She wasn't, all her toys were put away. It was dark in the lounge. I didn't turn lamps on. It's just the TV. She relaxed into me, and within 10 minutes she was asleep. And I was like, you know what? Right now, I don't care where she sleeps as long as she sleeps. And I think what I did is I turned her around, I put her on one end of the sofa, I slept on the other. And I think after a couple of hours, I was able to put her upstairs. But it was like, what's the saying? Is it comparison is the thief of joy?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think as long as your baby is safe, that is all that matters. There's, it doesn't matter as long as they are staying safe. There are so many different theories on what is safe. So please take whatever theory works for you. We're not judging anyone who sleeps. Like I said, I did co-sleeping as well. And, Cherry slept in a bookshelf.
I didn't sleep in the bookshelf. The baby slept in the bookshelf. It's like an upgrade of Harry Potter. But that was through choice.
Seriously, you're going that way?
She had plenty of nice places to sleep. She just liked being in the bookshelf.
Oh dear.
But no, if the moment you start, the worst thing is when you're sitting at a child's group or you're at the gates at school and they're like, oh, but my child doesn't have any screens and they don't listen to anything. They're in bed by 6 o'clock and this, that, and the other. I'm like, okay, great. I'm so happy for you. That wouldn't work in our house. My child would be probably on the roof somehow got there. And it's, you have to do if they need a later bedtime because they are full of energy, give them a later bedtime. If they, the moment putting them to bed becomes a force, it's like two magnets against each other, because you try making any child do anything they don't want to do. And this isn't me saying give in, this, because do not, obviously that really sets a bad precedent. But obviously if you're repelling against each other, you have to find another way to do it. And try out things, try it out. If you say have been going up and it's all exciting and their toys are all over their bedroom, so they're seeing all of their toys and all of this stuff, maybe do one change. Maybe one night pack their toys away before you go upstairs so they can't see them. It's not making them think about it. If you normally go up and you have to do the whole bedtime, like get their bed ready, do all of that, and they're sort of watching you do it, maybe have it ready before you go up so there's not that anxiety of getting it done. It's making little changes. And I think, if you normally do story time when it's, bright in the room and it's all like all of this, maybe try putting a nightlight on or a dimmer light so they know there's a progression. Like, I think it's a case of children are excited. Of course they are. Their brains are full of what happened during the day and what they saw at school and who they spoke to and, who stole whose sandwich out of the lunchbox or, it's all in there. And you can't just go, right, and turn off. Don't think of anything, go to sleep.
Yeah.
It's a progression. It's a transition from day to night.
Yeah. It's taking them from a really high energy space into a mindful, relaxed position. Yeah. And that's, I know with mine, when they had we're not saying give up. We're saying work with them to create a routine that works for both of you.
Yeah.
And, you know, if my children shared a room, which instantly made life really fun at bedtime,
Yeah.
you know, sharing a space is not the easiest way to get two boys to sleep.
No.
But we worked our way up from really high energy. We'd read a book called Monsters Jumping on the Bed. You can
Nice.
imagine exactly what happened in that room when I read that book every single night. But we'd start with that, and then from that we'd normally do two books. We'd do a really high energy book, and then we'd do a more where they had to think book. So
Nice.
sometimes we read books about dinosaurs because that was their current kind of theme, and I'd do the names wrong, so they had to correct me. So it was starting to work their brains down as well as their physical energy. It wasn't just one or the other. It was understanding that they had to work down in both ways.
Yeah.
And then from that, we'd just have the lights on the roof and the, you know, the chilled time in bed. And normally I'd guide them through a meditation or just shove something on my Spotify or whatever platform I had available at the time. And it is a progression, is coming from that high energy, your brain is really going, bringing them down in whatever way works for you. You know, there are so many different ways we could do it. Like I said, that, you know, that worked for me. My boys loved rereading books with them, so we'd read books together and we'd make them interactive, and that would slowly bring them down from the day into a space where we could do meditations and mindfulness and visualizations and that kind of thing. But even then they still didn't want to sleep.
No.
I spent many a night literally sitting in their room kind of going, okay, this is the quiet space. And I would have that quiet time with them until they fell asleep, till they were quite old. Mainly because they shared a room.
Yeah.
I think people, you know, you see social media, you see movies, you see all these things where your child hits 8 months, a year, and you don't need to be in the room with them. And then you get to teenage years and they come down at 2 o'clock in the morning and want a whole conversation.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, it doesn't work that way. You have,
Teens' brains are crazy.
You have bedtime interactions for many years. Mine's just off to uni, and I'm well expecting middle of the night text messages of, mum, I'm struggling with this, or mum, I'm doing this, or
how do you make pasta bake?
Don't. It's, I'm waiting for it. But those, I think that's a part of being a parent that people don't talk about enough.
Yeah.
That you need to be blinking good at waking up in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And in a way, I think if you're not able to be in the middle of the night with them, you need to make a way they can express themselves in the night freely for themselves. Because not every parent is great at being woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, and you want to make that an accessible way that works for you as well as the children, while understanding that they want to talk to you. It doesn't always work for you. If you're working 12-hour shifts and you need sleep, then having them wake you up at 3 a.m. doesn't work. So how can they still get it all out and work through that and make silent space for themselves without your support is kind of that next step to training, you know, a routine that works for families.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, people say, you know, there's so many different ways. We started using when Lily was quite young. I say we, it was me. We filled the room with sort of nice smells at night. There was like a sleep spray that I'd only ever spray it at night, so the association came with feeling calm and restful. And we actually, at one point, she was having nightmares, so we said, oh, you know what we haven't done your scary spray. And the spray meant that if you spray it, nothing scary can happen. And it's, you know, we associated it. And then when she got a little bit older, we're like, well, there's nothing scary tonight. Well, maybe it's a relaxation spray, and we'd change it, and it was, you know, all the relaxing smells. But she associated that with it, and then she got a bit older and she's like, can I spray it tonight? So she'd take over that. And it's the little routines. And there were points where when she would wake up and she'd be really upset, and I've got a really bad back. I've had 5 slip discs. I had surgery. I've now got 4 slip discs, but it meant leaning over into a bed quite difficult and getting up and down and really hard. So we went through a stage of when all she'd need is just that little bit of comfort. So we had a pillow that had my perfume on it. So what I'd do is, I couldn't sit on the edge of her bed for too long. So what we'd do
Yeah.
is, it wouldn't be in her bed the whole time because then she'd be used to it. But it was a pillow with my perfume on it that we'd keep sort of on the top of one of her shelves. And I'd come in, if it was in the middle of the night, I'd give her a cuddle, I'd give her a kiss, I'd sit and stroke her back for a few minutes, and I'd give her this pillow. And I'd say, right, you give, she used to call it the mummy pillow. She used to have that. And I said, right, I'm going to go, I'm going to get a drink, and then I'll come back. And then every time I do that, I'd leave it a little bit longer, a little bit longer. And then majority of the time she'd fall asleep. It's just knowing they're safe. Yeah. It's that moment. Obviously, there are some children that won't work for, but it worked for me. And she's quite a sensory child. So we found a smell that she likes. We found a smell that was relaxing. And then she associated that smell. And we actually found that spray in a shop the other day. And she hasn't used it for years, but she smelled it. It was like, whoa, I remember that. And it's this sensory recognition. And, from the calming little night lights, if your child doesn't like it dark, there's night lights. You can get these lovely little night lights. There's the diffusers that have the
you can get
nice
those
smells.
Heartbeat teddies, can't you now?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, because that's the thing. I think sensory things are so important, and it, like you said, it builds triggers into your brain. It, if you smell a smell that brings happiness and comfort, then it automatically floods your system with it when you smell that smell.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful way we ignore sensory way too much.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it's slowly getting better. I think there's more stuff for it now than there was like when mine was little, but it's still not quite there. It's not. I know that I've spoke to parents who have not wanted to give their child sensory things because it's not what they're supposed to do, in inverted brackets, or it's not normal, it'll make their child be picked on. And I'm like, no there's not go there. Let's give these children what they need so they can take the time and have some sleep. Let's feed their sensory needs. It's when we talk about sensory, we quite often think of being overwhelmed, but there's not just overwhelmed, there's missing things. Having that tight feeling or having a certain smell, it's a whole ball game. We could, that really is an area that can roll off onto one. So but there's so much we can do before bed. So I think we should kind of give a few things that we can actually do, because I think we could just talk sleep all day.
Oh yeah, we could, because it's different for everybody.
Get to the end and it'll be like, we've just talked about our sleep. We haven't even touched on adult sleep problems.
Oh, I'm still working through those, so I can't help you there.
I think I did. Yeah, I think I've done a few of those with I think I've even got a TikTok video of those when I've made it at like 2:00 in the morning, like, I can't sleep. This is what I'm doing to try and help myself sleep.
Yeah.
But I think even when you have the most strong routines as an adult, it can still be tricky to sleep.
Absolutely.
And absolutely. I think the thing is, we accept that as adults. We accept that we have insomnia. We accept that we have sleep problems, but yet we don't accept that our kids do.
Yeah. And it's perfectly normal. And we've got to, in the end, we are all humans. Yeah. So we're all going to have similar functions, and it's doing stuff like, I think it's things you do with your children at night you can do for yourself. Like, definitely. I know some people are very, they are very by the book, but they still need help. And you sit there going, have you tried a guided meditation? And they're like, no, that's awful. But I'm like, at the same time, you could easily sit next to your child and do a body scan, which, for people who don't understand a body scan, you literally just get them to lay down and you talk them through it's breathing, and then it's feeling different parts of their body, tense and relax all the way through. And it just helps to fully relax the body. Yes. But it doesn't take much. You don't have to be trained in that. And then when you get into bed, lay there, breathe for a few minutes, really feel your body, like start at your shoulders, tense, relax, do your arms, do your hands, do your stomach, all the way down. And it just stretches those muscles, relaxes your body. It's so simple and really quite effective. And you're not sitting there, waving sage over their head or something like that. It's
You spoil all my fun. Seriously, why can't they go waving sage over my kids' heads? Actually, to be honest, my kids are so used to that kind of thing they wouldn't even notice.
When it comes down to it, you know, that if it works, do it. But you know, you've got the people who really want the help, but they're so anti anything holistic. And you know, I think people don't give holistic methods enough. You know, the credit behind things which are more natural or have worked for hundreds of years. Give it a try. Like, no one's judging you. If your child sleeps, that's the aim. You know, in the end, it's something that you know, give it a go. If you haven't tried it, you don't know if it works or not. And you know, Lily and I used to do story time, and then we used to turn the light off. And I mean, I had to prep for this because my brain didn't work that fast, but she'd always then ask me to tell her a story from my mind, so make one up. But it was completely in the dark. She'd usually give me like a theme and I'd have to make it up, but she then would, because it's dark, she's then imagining it, and majority of the time she'd be really tired by the end of it because it's like counting sheep. She's imagining it. But again, it's just something that used to work. It got to one point where it would stop and it didn't work anymore. We had to try something else. But yeah, there's so many different things. But it depends. If your child is someone who's going to bed with a head full of things, like all of that, then diary writing, gratitude, you could do a little sheet, you could write down, get it out your head. Because again, I know that these days it's easier if you've got a tablet or, you know, a phone to type it, but 100% use a pen and paper and write it down, because you need to get it out of your body. So even if you have a whiteboard or a piece of paper,
so if you have issues with writing and stuff like that, you can also use an audio recording. So if you record it and record your voice as you're saying those things, you know, it's that, make it accessible for you, obviously, but it's, you know, work it into your routine. Like Cherry says, get it out, and maybe do that a bit earlier in the day, so you can get all your worries out earlier in the day, 10-15 minutes earlier, kind of maybe around dinner time, you know, whenever works for you. And then at bedtime, start looking towards things that are kind of bringing the brain into a more healthy, you know, focus on kindness, on optimism, creating what tomorrow's going to bring, or having, you know, a bedtime conversation of something they've done really amazing that day. Or children quite often want to talk before bed, so give them something good to talk about, get their brain on this pathway, because you'll also be relaxing when you're talking about things that aren't causing your body to have all the stress reactions. So yes, you're still allowing them to talk, but try and make those things without all the stress reactions in your body. So what acts of kindness did they do? What strengths did they use? What, you know, how did they bring, I don't know, something like, how did they bring joy into their day? Or, you know, make them kind of have those considerations, let the worries out first, and then work your way into a more, I guess, not positive, but a more structured conversation of like bringing the stress down. So you're working your way out from a stress conversation down to a more relaxed, chilled out, and then do your body thing that Cherry just said. That's one of the easiest meditations. And to be honest, there's also, you know, go on any social media platform and put in body scan, and you will find 10 of them just on the top.
Everywhere.
Just on the top line, there'll be body scans everywhere. Or you know, if you want to pop over to Dreamweavers, we've got body scans as well, so you can always come and use one of ours that will be available in the memberships there. So it's, body scans are one of those really base level meditations that are everywhere, and they really work to not just bring children down, but to also create an awareness of the physical body that they're in and build confidence in that physical body. So yeah, body scans are really powerful things.
And it's not as if you have to be a hypnotherapist to do it. You just have to take 5 minutes, take a breath, and help them. And it's, you know, even if you're feeling stressed in the middle of the day, you can take 2 seconds to just stand, really feel your body, feel how you're feeling, tense, relax. It just resets your muscles a bit. There's so much more to it than just bedtime. But what I found with my daughter is I sometimes made it worse for myself, where I'd be trying to make her focus on the pot, because we had such a, obviously we went into it in previous podcast, but she really struggled going to school. So the night times as she got older, when she was about 5 and 6, was really hard because she was already worrying about the next day. And that was really tough. And I got into the habit of going, well, let's think of all the positive things tomorrow. And we'd find 2 things that are really happy, but then we'd thought too much about it and her brain wasn't switched off from today, and she was now worrying about tomorrow. And it's a fine line, because you want her to go, look, tomorrow you've got that really fun school trip, like, aren't you really looking forward to that? That's why we want to sleep. And now she was like, school trip, I'm buzzing, like, I really want to do it. And then she'd be like, yeah, but I'm not with you. I've got to go on my own. Or who's taking me to school tomorrow? What am I wearing? What shoes am I wearing? And it would spiral. So it was that fine line of like focusing on, tomorrow's a new day, but we're not there yet. So let's, it's more exciting. Tomorrow's going to happen tomorrow, but let's focus on the good of today first. And what was your best bit of today? And if she goes, yeah, but that horrible thing happened, I was like, okay, we can talk about that if you like. Let's talk about why wasn't it nice, and say, but you got through it, didn't you? And we're here, and you're fine. And I hate the word
what
fine.
Did you learn from it? What's come out of it?
What do you think we could do differently next time? And I found it's not a case of fixing their problems for them. It's helping them to understand that they can try and work through it themselves. And that's not me being like a neglectful parent. It's me saying, look, if you rely on me to fix your problems forever, then you won't be able to understand it. Whereas now, if we have a chat, okay, why was that bad? What could have been done differently? Next time that happens, what do you think you will do? And it's just opening up that channel. And then by the time they go back to thinking about it, they're not laying in bed thinking of that. They're thinking of, oh, okay, well, next time I could do that, or I could do this. And it takes that edge off. And I think it's just, as I say, it's not fixing it for them. It's helping them process it.
I think also as parents, we can't fix it for them.
No.
As much as we want to, we can't. My youngest has took the whole of his life quite enjoying the fact that he will rub in my face, Mum, you've got a master's in psychology, but you have no idea how my brain works. That is like one of his most favorite sayings, is to rub in my face that I have no idea how your brain works.
Yeah.
Probably not.
But would he have preferred you to psychoanalyze him his whole life? Like, would he have preferred that?
I wouldn't even try. I wouldn't dare try. No. But I think the thing is, we can't read other people's minds.
No.
So as much as an adult, we can try and listen, we can make room to understand, we can explore with curiosity what our children are thinking and feeling, and really hear them. That is majorly important, active listening, and hearing our children and making space for them. But we will never understand exactly what it is that they are thinking and feeling.
Absolutely.
It's just not possible. It just isn't. So we can't fix what we don't understand, because their solution to it is not ours.
No.
It just isn't. We can give them all these options and we can give them all the support we know how to use. But the best thing we can do is empower them with knowledge of how to do these things so they can adapt them.
Yeah, absolutely.
If they want to adapt the body scan, go ahead, adapt it. Show me what you want. How will it work for you? And I think that's kind of the most important thing when it comes to sleep problems. We can listen to them explaining why they're struggling. We can try 50 billion things and put them in place. But it's empowering them to say, I'm not sleeping because this is too loud for me tonight. And understanding that tomorrow night, that could be perfect.
Yeah.
It's, everything is so individual. And I think that's going to be a theme across all our podcasts is, we're here to explore. We're here to share our stories, and we're here to kind of help as much as we possibly can. But with the individualism of each child and each topic and each family, every social structure. Oh, yeah, this is why I love psychology. I could really dig. It's absolutely dangerous. But, no one is the same. We don't have the same past. We don't have the same energies. We don't have the same thoughts. We just don't. So please take whatever you need from these podcasts, but understand that we want to hear yours too, you know. So feel free to share. Tell us what your stories are. What are your experiences? What helped you get past your sleep problems or your child's sleep problems? Because we're only literally skimming the surface of our own stories. There's so much more to this out there, and we really would love to help as many people as possible. So share it and tell us, because we want to hear what works for you as well. You know, if we can create something that would help you, tell us what you want created, and we will work really hard to try and create that for you, because that just is like a challenge to a red bull, you know, red rag bull. You're just, we'll be there.
Yeah. And I genuinely, honestly believe in that saying that it takes a village to raise a child. And I think it does, whether you are obviously not necessarily having the people there, but we are lucky that we're living in a time that the online community is so big. And, you know, we want to establish a community where people can come into a Dreamweavers forum or pop on a Dreamweaver post and goes, I am stuck. Has anyone got an idea? We want, you know, we're living experts. We're not experts in everything, but everyone knows their own expertise and goes, this worked for me. Did it work for you? And it didn't work for you. I'm sorry about that, but maybe it'll help someone else, or maybe tweak it, try something else. You know, we're not sitting here going, you know, this, you know, you have to do it this way. God, no. We are, try it. You know, you're not alone. And that is the main thing. You are not alone. And being a parent is tough. Like it is tough, whether, you know, even working with children. So whether you're a teacher, whether you work with children in any aspect, whether you are a grandparent, an auntie, just a friend, you know, every single person who has to interact with children, they are learning. Their brains are discovering new stuff every day. And I think one thing we've got to remember about kids, that they didn't come into this world with any knowledge. We are teaching them, and if we're struggling, they're going to learn from that. And obviously, I'm not saying, this isn't me putting blame on people, but we are learning. We came from a different generation. We are developing at the same time as them. So let's, all the positives that we find, let's teach them earlier the better. Because you know, if they can then get a bit older and help a friend, you know, if you teach your child a really good sleep routine, and then they're sitting at school age 13 with a friend who's going, you know what, I just can't sleep, like, and they go, oh well, I do this, what, you try that, and in the end it's, you know, they won't need us.
Which is kind of the aim, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and we're establishing a little toolbox for them to take forward with them. But it's ask for help. If it doesn't work, try something different. You know, the only failure is when you stop trying. You haven't failed at all until then.
Oh, you're full of these quotes today, Jerry. I'm impressed.
I feel like I don't know much about actual life, but I can come up with a nice little quote.
If it works, it works. Quotes are definitely the way forward. As long as we don't start with the awful jokes as well, we're fine.
I'm saving those for like the Ducks After Dark podcast, whatever that is.
Oh no, not another podcast.
Wine and wine.
Oh dear, that's not a podcast, that's a live one. We're doing that live, the wine and wine, so that'll be even more likely to have the bad jokes in. And
I pre-apologize to anyone who watches that, because soz.
Anyone who comes and joins us on Wine and Wine, we are so sorry.
But we're human, and that's the thing. That's what this is about. This isn't coming on and being sat in front of a scary psychologist. It is coming and speaking to people who have experienced it and who want to help. And we're not preaching. I'm not saying it again. We're not preaching. We're not preaching to people. We're just sharing what might help. And
I think it's also teaching people that psychology doesn't have to be scary. It can be real life, and it's in there, and you know, it's putting real things into real. I've said real a lot of times. That was a lot of real.
It's like me.
I'm thinking you. Oh my God, completely gone. Right. Let's try that again. Psychology is something that can be used every single day in so many different ways, and it doesn't have to be something scary in an office. It's in everyday life. So I'm not saying real
Absolutely.
again though. I'm just not. I'm avoiding that word now.
Real.
Right. I think we're wrapping up for this episode 2 because I think me and Cherry are going to descend completely into I don't know what, but it's not going to go well.
I could do with a sleep.
After all that discussion, I think we probably need one. But thank you so much, everyone who's listened to this episode. It's, you know, I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. And if you want to comment, like, subscribe, send it to a friend, do whatever's needed. And we will see you soon. Say bye.